care, I'ma be a trillionaire like.
Welcome to the I Love Recruiting podcast with your host, Adam Roach.
Welcome back, everybody, to the I Love Recruiting podcast. I'm your host, Adam Roach. And if you're watching live in the Art of Recruiting, welcome, welcome, welcome. And remember, if you have a question while you're watching live in the Art of Recruiting, put it in there, because the man I'm getting ready to introduce, he's going to bring it. He's going to drop some nuggets and he's going to bring his story. So, Mr. Matthew Ledford, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself. Who are you? You were born, and then what happened?
Thanks, man. That's a great question. I've heard that question before. That sounds kind of familiar.
Right?
Man, dude, that's a long time back. It's hard to go back that far. You know, it's interesting. The journey with real estate, especially, started when I was 15. And I was thinking I was really a cool little 15-year-old dude, learning to drive a little Datsun pickup truck with my dad, but flipping a house before there were TV shows about it. And so did some of that with him, and then the internet came along and rode that wave, building online catalogs for folks like World Soccer Shop and FIFA and 3M. So I was a digital guy for 2 decades plus. And then I realized, you know, what is the MLS but a big catalog? And each house is a product that we can promote to buyers and to sellers, and use some of the tools that we used in marketing the catalogs in this space. And so after moving to Charleston, semi-retiring, when I met you, I was sliding into KW Mount Pleasant, an awesome environment there to get some traction, to learn, kind of pivot and refocus. The name of my company was Fast Pivot. So in this age, you have to pivot even faster than you did before. And so it's been a cool journey, man, to get to this point.
Yeah, for sure. So let's back up, because now you didn't mention anything about being a triathlete now.
Dude, oh, well, see, because COVID's been wiping out the triathlon season, man. You know, part of the deal with aging, you know, that I tell folks, it's like, man, you got to get agile, not fragile. You want to be stronger, and age is just a number. And so one of my cousins, her husband, actually a few years back said, I figured it out, because he was a corporate guy with Bank of America, and he says, you guys are quality of lifers, right? I was like, quality of lifer? What is that? Yeah, maybe, now that you mention it. And so part of triathlon, part of training is the quality of life deal, being able to enjoy God's creation every day on land or in the water. And so a little bit of training here and there goes a long way, even if it's just a sprint. You know, it's good. God gave us one spacesuit for the planet, and the replacement parts are pretty good, but they're not as good as the originals. So as many of your original parts as you can take care of in training, and also the effectiveness in your whole life just translates, man.
Now, I know you've worked really hard in that space and training your body and doing all those types of things. What did you bring from that into real estate?
You know, the formula of consistency over time brings results. And the daily
more about that. That's good.
The daily habits can make you or they can break you. And so realizing that being consistent, building something, there's no such thing as instant fruit, Adam. We all know that. It's like we want to pull the leaves on the tree, but it's like those oranges aren't going to come any faster than they're going to come. You know, and the seed that we're sowing this quarter, we all know, usually doesn't bear fruit until next quarter, whether it's recruiting or in the real estate business. And the same's true with training. Same's true with fitness. I mean, it's like your fitness now, what you're doing now will determine where you are 3 to 6 months from now, you know, and where you want to be, you know, identifying that. You know, I saw some of my buddies had done a half marathon in Hilton Head this weekend, and I was kind of jealous. I was like, man, I'm not half marathon fit yet, but I want to get there, you know?
I love that. Man, you're dropping some nuggets already. I like that. Get agile, not fragile. That's a good one.
Not fragile.
And the consistency. So walk us back. How long did it take you to learn about this consistency secret? And I'm going to say secret on purpose, because so many people do want to have this instant gratification, because that's the world we live in right now, which is instant gratification. I love going to Instacart and doing my groceries, and they show up, right? They show up within an hour. However, we know whether that's in the recruiting space or whether that is in the real estate space or anything in life, we've got to have that patience. So walk us through that. How did you learn that consistency over time will yield the results that you want?
One of the things you realize is that positive habits help feed themselves. You know, being part of an active fitness, gym, running community, whether it's CrossFit, triathlon clubs, there's the social as well as the physical. And having accountability on that consistency over time is one of the key points. And I hear you talk about that a lot. It's like if you want to make a dream come true, start to share it with some other people, because then it's not just internal, and there's a draw once we let it out there and we share it in our circles, you know, to want to be more consistent. So the gang that was doing the half marathon, I'm like, I need the half marathon motivational speech. I want to be out there with you guys on the next one, you know? And so recognizing that your years are made of days and minutes, and then looking at, okay, how do I design my ideal life? I'm big on mentoring with my mentees with EXP, that you know, it's up to you to design your life in this business, and where you prioritize, where you invest your time is where you're going to bear fruit. If you don't have time to exercise, I would probably question that assumption, and you will pay later probably if you don't figure out how to take care of the spacesuit that God's given you, one way or another. But you know, the effectiveness quotient of being able to unplug. Adam, I'm not good at taking vacations, but I just took a vacation, just came back from the Keys, had a blast, dude, and really relaxed. And the value of pushing back, having that consistency, but then giving yourself permission to unplug, to reflect, to reset, to renew, because within the treadmill we all get on, you know, sometimes it's hard to get off. Sometimes it's hard to unplug and turn off the notifications. I'm not wearing my Apple Watch anymore except to exercise, because I got tired of the buzz. I mean, I was like, I know, and I get false buzzes on my wrist now, even with this watch. It's like, this is my dive watch, and I was like, that thing doesn't buzz. Why is it doing that? You know, what am I doing here? You know, so that the consistency over time breeds results. And really, the thing about results, I remember Sharon Srivatsa in the 5 a.m. Club. That's one of my favorite groups. I just interviewed on Success Clues Hannah B, who is the weekend host with the 5 a.m. Club. And Sharon was talking about, you know, what's one of the keys to growth? What is, if you could just point to one thing, what is the key to growth? And Sharon said, ultimately, it's focus. If you have focus on any area, then you will see growth. But if you're unfocused, if you're scattered, if you're undisciplined, if you don't have the consistency over time, you can't really expect to see the growth, right?
Right. I definitely agree with that. So let's go into you. So where's one area that Mr. Ledford is putting time, energy, consistency, I'm going to use some of your words, accountability, focus, so that equals fruit of growth? Right. Where are you growing these days? Where are you looking to continue to advance yourself?
Great question, man. Great question. This year I've stepped out and started a YouTube Zoom series I call Success Clues, after Tony Robbins' quote, "Success leaves clues." And what I'm doing is becoming a better interviewer. One of the things I realized was, for my mentees to hear me all the time could get pretty boring. And I you know, I've got a few good things, but there's a whole wealth of knowledge out there that I can tap and I can be learning and engaging with. And so I dropped a link to my new Success Clues. I want to get to 100 followers as quick as possible to get rid of that gnarly URL that YouTube gives you until you get the 100. And so appreciate the help with this group to do that. And I've interviewed agents from more than just EXP, although I do have a lot of EXP friends that I can tap and really get their clues. But it's been wonderful for my mentees, for people new in the business. Part of my heart is kind of like Ricky Carruth, in that, you know, I want to help reduce the failure rate in the business. And for good people who realize this is a lifestyle that they want, to be able to put some foundational pieces in place, some foundational habits, some ways to be consistent over time, to learn it, and really to hear from people that have been there, done that, and not just me, you know, because I've backed into recruiting as more of a mentor coach and so it's almost like this year where I'm realizing it's like, wow, okay, two deals a month, whether buyer or seller, or two buyers, two sellers, plus two recruits, or two people I'm adding to the team now globally, now that we can actually recruit globally, which is really cool. It's powerful, building a referral network with that. And so the Success Clue series has been great fun already. I think we've got 4 or 5 on YouTube now, and are beginning to promote those with folks from all across the country, which is neat. And Adam Roach is going to be my guest coming up.
Woo! Watch out now.
Encounter. Looking forward to that.
So what's the actual URL? I'm going to type it in the Facebook group right now. So we got youtube.com.
I actually, it's too gnarly. I'm going to drop it in chat for you. If you go to bit.ly Ledford-YouTube, that is the place where you can land, because that, how the gnarly URL is, it's like 10 miles long until you get. So that's a little link shortener that helps get it in the Facebook group for folks.
Perfect. I just added it to the Art of Recruiting Facebook, which is going live right now. So I want to go back to the foundational habits. Right? Yes. Let's go back to the foundational habits that you were just speaking of. So you're reaching out, you're starting to expand your network, you're starting to expand your reach and your ability to attract people to you, which is why you've created the Success Clues YouTube Zoom. What foundational habits are you learning that you feel you're starting to build to become this attraction magnet?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I heard another agent talking about, who's pretty big in social, is realizing that content creation is a type of lead generation, and allowing permission, giving permission and time to actually create good content. Because a lot of us have been told Facebook's a time suck. It's a waste of time. Social, it's just not worth it. When you begin to look at leveraging those channels, leveraging those platforms, whether it's Facebook, Insta, YouTube, looking at content as a strategy, and including that in your time blocking, including, what kind of content are we going to be putting out this week, and how are we going to create some evergreen content, or some more lead funnels or conversation starters, that can be helpful. LinkedIn, I think, is one of the missed opportunity for a lot of people. And because I've been so techie connected over the last 20 years, I've got a lot of connections in California and really all over the world through that realm. And so we can engage in conversations now globally faster and better than ever before, man. I mean, so I was talking to some prospects in South Africa, because South Africa just opened up, and I've got some tech buddies that I knew from the internet commerce world that I was like, hey, I've got a great opportunity, and would love an introduction, if people who might be interested. And your network helps build your net worth. We want to help our friends be successful and to reach their goals. And so being able to share those goals and reach out to people with just a few keystrokes, and a little bit of intentionality, and making the time, blocking the time to do that, and to get started in conversations, potentially globally, is easier than coffee. My dog is in the background. She's rereading.
Yeah, I see her.
That's Maggie, Princess Margaret.
I want to go back to this real quick. So I want to talk about 2 or 3 different things here. The first one is share with people, and again, we've heard this terminology now used pretty consistently in the tech space, evergreen. And then I also want you to talk about the LinkedIn approach, right? Yes. Because not many people will jump on this podcast, or even in the recruiting space, and talk about how they're maximizing the opportunity of LinkedIn. So walk us through the evergreen thought process, and then take us down the LinkedIn path.
Right. Gotcha. Evergreen content is content that doesn't get old. It's not dated. It's something that will provide value over time. It could be an article, could be a video, could be like my Success Clues. A lot of these things that are being shared, they're not dated. It's not specific to COVID. It's not specific to 2020, 2021, but they're principles that work, and keys that can work in all kinds of markets, in all kinds of seasons, and all kinds of times. And so, thinking about things that are not so tied into the moment or the news feed of the second, that they could provide potential value. And from a search engine optimization standpoint, I look at it like, what are people searching for on Google? What kind of questions are they asking that maybe they're not getting answers for, that maybe we can create some content around, whether it's how to buy mountain land or things you need to think about when you're buying mountain land in Western North Carolina, where part of our team is, because there's a lot to it, man. When people are coming looking from Florida and they have a perception of what they want to look for, that's a key element for us that we've created internally for the team. And then we take that same content, repurpose parts of it to make it customer facing, client facing as well. LinkedIn.
So pause there for a second. Hold on, Matt. So pause there for a second. Go back. Let's rewind for a second. And I want you to say again. So we talked about search engine optimization, and we're going back and we're looking for what potential people are searching for. Yep. Walk us through your 1, 2, 3s, your ABCs of how to do something like that. So our listeners can, if they want to, they can pause this right here and go do that for themselves.
Brilliant.
What do you do?
Yeah. The simplest thing to look at first, without even hiring any tools or buying anything, because there's several subscription things that will tell you what people are searching for on the internet. But Google, within their autocomplete, will make suggestions that are auto-suggesting what people have already been searching for. And so when you start a thought in your Google search bar, in Chrome especially, the auto-suggest and autocomplete will tell you, oh, somebody's searching for this phrase. And so that's a beginning point. And I'll brainstorm the concept with different phrases. And then I'll look at just doing the auto suggest with Google, or there are other like SEO Moz, other tools for organic search engine optimization. The beauty of free traffic is it keeps giving and giving and giving. But when you're buying traffic from Google, it's like, oh crap, this is, you turn off the faucet, the traffic stops. But both kind of pages can yield results, and so thinking intentionally about content and what are the questions people want answered, and how can we answer them, even if they're what we call long tail keywords, which is not the biggest chunky, Charleston real estate broad term. It's something more narrow that's fewer searches, but maybe easier to get ranked for. Is a great way to begin to think about your content strategy. And then I've got to get more consistent over time with what we're doing, honestly. Thinking about building evergreen content, answering questions that people are looking for answers for, whether it's in their business or life, places to eat in the Asheville. Since I grew up there, I inevitably in Charleston, people are like, oh, we're going to Asheville. What should we do? I'm like, here's the link to my favorite hikes. Here's the link to my favorite restaurants. I've got a little blurb, of things that you can do that are super close. And so, it's a natural part of your conversation that you realize, oh, people are asking about this. Maybe we ought to answer that question for them, right?
Right, for sure. Now, I want to pause that for a second before we go to LinkedIn here and finish with that. Gang, I want you to hear what Matt's doing. He is creating, he's getting purposeful and intentional with the content that he's creating. Now, if we tie this back to recruiting, remember the recruiting equation that we've all been talking about for a long time. Linda McKissick was the one who's probably coined this phrase, and we're going to continue to add to it, is relationships plus value and validity over time equals self-discovery. So what I'm hearing you do, Matt, is you are creating this value add. You're creating this simple approach to appeal to the masses. So the masses come to you, they see your value, and then over time, you're going to build relationships with them. Is that what I'm hearing, right?
That's it. Exactly. Well, and the goal is to be attractional. Part of my lifestyle with living in Charles, having the best of both worlds, mountains to the sea, the mountains, the ocean, spending time in the Keys. I don't hype listings as much as promote lifestyle. Occasionally the listings will come in, occasionally the success celebrations will come in as well, but the bulk of the content is not about real estate that I'm pushing. It's purposeful in really keeping relationship. And one of the interesting things is with Facebook, I've noticed commenting on people's stories is a great way to stay engaged with them, because we lose touch with people. We're all busy, right? LinkedIn, the thing about LinkedIn, and I know we may be running short on time, is it is a less noisy space. It's the signal to noise ratio is a little clearer there, and people are expected to be professionals there. And so often you may share the same nugget of content or value on Facebook, on your Facebook page, It may be a link to a blog article or whatever, but you will get more traction sometimes on LinkedIn from a different audience than sometimes you expect. It's kind of true of Twitter with my techie friends. You know, one of my buddies that I've known for years, selling apartment complex in Oakland, ready to get out of that market, wanting to reinvest in the Carolinas, you know, and had I not been talking some, not excessively, about real estate, he wouldn't have reached out to me, you know, through the social channels. Because we all wonder, hey, what are these guys doing now? You know, what have you done lately? What do you got going on? You know, techie people talk about stuff like that. So what you working on? What you excited about? You know?
Yeah, for sure. So I like what you said there. So LinkedIn is a less noisy space, and people are going to show up more professional because that's the expectation of that platform, right?
Yes, exactly.
So in that, what are you doing to either attract or continue to build relationships where they now see that you are the point of interest, the value, so on and so forth?
One of the things we're trying to do is make sure, and we've got to create better workflows for the content that we're creating. You know, once you create the content, it sits there on an island. And unless you syndicate it out to your socials, people don't see it. And those links are valuable because Google says, hey, somebody's linking from LinkedIn to this. I mean, some of them are walled, but getting links matter for your content, whether it's on your blog or part of your YouTube channel. The more people link to it, the more Google says, hey, this is probably pretty good stuff. Maybe we should bump it up in the search results. So getting people to link to your content is important. You linking yourself is the first thing. And so one of the things that'll happen is all of us will create content, and then it will be trailing us. Like, it's like, you know, off the back of the car, like, you know, cans dragging, you know, at the wedding, you know, it's like, oh, we made all this awesome content, but we haven't promoted it anywhere, you know? So it's like having that loop of workflow to be sure that you're getting the contents that you've already created out into the socials on a regular basis, and making LinkedIn a part of that. And part of the thing too is being sure to ask questions in that post so that you engage in a dialogue. All of the socials want you to stay on that channel, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. And so if you can promote some discussion by the way that you frame the content you deliver and the questions you ask to get further engagement, then those posts stay live longer and generally get more exposure than ones that are just put up as a piece of content and they don't promote any kind of interaction or any kind of questions.
Right. So go back to this. I love the visual there of the wedding car pulling away with the cans behind it. I'm not sure if
you're dragging behind, dude.
How would, if we're talking to a layman right now, right? Because again, this episode will be downloaded at least 5,000 times. And we've got someone that's listening to us right now. They're like, wow, that was really great for Matt. I can see my car pulling away, but man, I don't know how to link myself to this. What would you suggest that someone do to link themselves to all this content that they're creating?
Right. I think using a tool like a Buffer or a HubSpot, or just looking at the things that you've created, and really, ideally, you want to create, just like your time blocking for your time, lay out a content strategy, lay out a plan so that you're realizing, okay, we don't want to overshare this too frequently, but we could share it once a week, for instance. And people would not get offended on certain channels if we post the same thing more than once, especially on Instagram. Instagram, people, you know, the people don't even look at your page on Instagram that much. Occasionally they land there and they're like, oh, this is cool, you know, but mostly it's about stories, you know, and so leveraging stories is one of the key elements. That's a little harder to push to sometimes, and then to create the deeper engagement, the deeper click. But you know, looking at the first thing for me was got to create some content, right? If you're not creating anything, out of sight is totally out of mind, you know. And so keeping the visibility up there, whether I'm engaging on their posts or they're engaging on my posts, is a part of the strategy.
Right. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, bring us home here, my friend. We're right at the bottom of the hour. What specifically can our listeners help you accomplish? I know we've got your Success Clues YouTube page. What else can our listeners help you do right now?
Thank you for that question, man. Connect with me, MatthewLedford.com. I love building a network of great people making a difference on the planet. part of my sign off for our accountability call, our doing 5 by 9 call with our little team, is to go out there and love your neighbor today, because we've had so much division that being reminded to love your neighbor. And we're in a cool space as far as real estate, because if someone really doesn't love their neighbor, or their neighbor's driving them crazy, we can help them find a new neighbor, which is kind of nice, that they might be able to love, so we're part of building community that way. It's like, okay, that neighbor just has got to go. But either they got to go or I got to go, and they're not going anywhere. So we're going to find a good real estate professional to help us find a neighbor we can love a little bit better. And so that's part of the campaign that I'm on in the midst. And so I'd love to have other like-minded folks in the biz join me in that pursuit.
Excellent. And they can if they go to MatthewLedford.com, they can get attached to you. Is that right?
All my socials are there, email lists, best place to connect with me.
Excellent. Very good. Well, everybody, I mean, again, I've got a whole page of notes right here. I even got a bunch of circles on here, Matt, so that are connecting things that I'm going to go do. This is really, really good. Everybody, this has been a great podcast. Lots of depth into this, Matt, and I really, really appreciate that. Layout, strategy, love your neighbor, which is good. Promote your content, right? And again, that's my biggest takeaway from this is we've all got a lot of content out there. Now it's time to go promote that content. And if that content, what'd you say, doesn't get old, gang, it becomes evergreen. So that's really, really good. My friend of a long time, I appreciate your time here. Everybody, this has been the I Love Recruiting podcast. I am your host, Adam Roach, and we just talked to the one and only Mr. Matthew Ledford. And go check him out at MatthewLedford.com. Take care, everybody. See you. Bye.